We have a presentation from the Port Moody Fire Rescue on mudflat rescues. Welcome. Hopefully not because you're anticipating that the general public needs to know.
Your Worship, members of Council, I have a brief presentation on mudflat rescue. It's a new rescue program for Port Moody Fire Rescue, and we're just putting the finishing touches on it as we speak. You'll probably recognize this fellow. This is Deputy Chief Gord Parker, who bravely volunteered to go into the mud and not simulate getting stuck, but actually getting stuck so that we could practice rescuing. The biggest exposure that we do have as far as mud goes in the city is at the head of the inlet, and clearly at low tide you can see that it's quite extensive. And although there's a lot of signs warning people of the dangers of walking out in the mud flats, they continue to cross. Back in August of last year, we responded to a woman that was stuck in the mud just off of the old mill site, and you can see that she was stuck right up to her waist. We responded with, it looks like about 8 members, there's 2 crews. And we didn't have any specific equipment for mud rescue at the time, and so we had to improvise. We used ropes, we used a ladder for a working platform, and we also used a shovel to dig the mud out from around her and help free her. And we did have a successful outcome. It was effective, but it wasn't quite efficient. It caused us some concern because it tied our crews up for over an hour, and we knew we had to do better. We knew we had to be better prepared, and so we were looking at refining this program, and also further to being involved in that rescue that day. That rescue received a lot of media coverage from several media outlets, including a national program, which led to a day down in Bayview, Washington, and there was a workshop down there, and these folks had seen Port Moody Fire Rescue affecting this rescue of this woman out of the mud flats, and they contacted us. So in September, they put on a mud flat rescue workshop down in Bayview, Washington, and they invited us down. Deputy Chief Parker attended, and there was various groups that attended from Washington State that included fire rescue departments. The Navy was involved, search and rescue was involved, Coast Guard was involved. So there was a lot of specialty organizations down there that had some experience, and they all put their heads together and exchanged ideas on various procedures and equipment that would be effective in a mud rescue. This is the key piece of equipment. This is what makes the difference. These are mud shoes that you would just strap on any footwear that you would have, and allows you to walk around mud quite freely without sinking. And so this is the key piece of equipment that we purchased, the only piece of equipment that we had to purchase for our program. And the other benefit of this piece of equipment is that in the event of a mudslide in Port Moody, which we have had in the past, coming from the chines, etc., it was very difficult for us to get around and maneuver in those mudslides, and these will benefit our ability to effect rescues in mudslide conditions and any other type of work that we have to do around the mudslides. So just earlier this year, preparing for this summer season, this training took place in May. There's Deputy Chief Parker. He couldn't quite get stuck up to his waist, but he did get stuck up to his knees. And I don't know if you've ever been stuck in mud before. It's almost impossible to get out, and the more you struggle, the deeper you seem to sink into the mud. This is also the equipment that we put together. It's equipment that we had in service already, and so we didn't have to buy any new equipment other than the mud boots. And this was the day that we put it to test, and what our experience was is we could reduce a mud rescue to less than a half hour, probably around 20 minutes, which is a significant improvement. And there's a working platform. That's a spine board that we particularly use in first aid calls, and we use that for the patient to be able to get themselves up onto, so that they've got a place to walk. And we can also outfit them with a set of mud rescue boots as well, so they can walk away from the scene without anyone having to carry them. The technique is quite straightforward. We inject pressurized water in and around the limb, and what that does is it liquefies the mud and it breaks the suction. And it's the suction that really is problematic. So by breaking the suction, you can freely move your limb out. And that we can get somebody out in 1 to 2 minutes. There's just a closer view of what, there's one limb out. Now, the mud is particularly sticky, and like I said earlier, once you get stuck in the mud, it's almost impossible to work your way out. Typically what happens is, if you can't get out, you end up exhausting yourself, and there's other issues that come into play, such as respiratory challenges, cardiac challenges, people with diabetes, and of course, as we experienced with that rescue back in August, the tide starts coming in, and it really sends a wave of panic to the person that's stuck in the mud. That's our rescue kit. It's all equipment that we have in service right now. We have a nozzle. We've got lots of fire hose that we use, a spine board, and the specialty mud rescue boots. So again, it's actually ready to go, and we are working on our procedures. We just now need to capture our procedures in document form, share it with the crews, do some training, and we're good to go. And the timing is just about right too, because we're seeing a lot of people out in the mud flats right now. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chief. And we can't say enough, don't go out on the mud flats. It's you don't want to try this stuff out. You can go out on the mud flats. We don't want other people going out.
I should say that there are signs all the way around the trail, and that warn people of the dangers of going out in the mud, but they continue to go out.
Signs are for other people.